Recording is going. So good evening, everybody. I think for those who don't know me, my name is Ramani. Been in the industry for IT sales industry for around 27 years. Currently associated with around 75 odd B schools. I'm mentoring a lot of startups as well as sales strategy consultant to a few companies. Like I was saying, today's session is predominantly aimed at gamification as a pedagogy tool. Okay, like I said, science colleges have their laboratories, but unfortunately, business school does not have something like a business lab where they can probably go ahead and where students what theory they have learned in a classroom can actually experiment with or play with it in the laboratory is kind of missing. So to bridge that gap and to engage better with the students, gamification as a pedagogy tool is what we are going to explore today. This is part of my bi-weekly series. Every 2 weeks, the first and third Saturday of the month, I'm doing a free webinar kind of a thing. So this videos of this also get uploaded on our YouTube channel, so it's there for anybody to see at any point in time. So let's continue further. Some basic rules in my session. Any point in time, you can always unmute yourself and ask me questions. Okay, I'm not the kind of person who says ask questions at the end. I like the interaction at any point in time. You can always just unmute and ask me questions, because interaction makes the session lively, and there's a lot of yarn that gets exchanged during the interaction rather than my slide sharing or whatever. So from an agenda perspective, I want to set the expectation correctly. First is experiential learning, the advantages and how it actually helps anybody. Even in a corporate training, when we are sitting in a classroom and somebody is giving us gyan, understanding is fantastic, but the change or the change initiator actually happens when it is actually not understanding, but when we realizing it. Yeah, sure. I will share my contacts. No worries. I'll share my email address any point and you can touch base with me. Yeah. So when the realization happens, that is where change initiators happen, or people start understanding concepts and they realize the concepts and learn it from an application perspective. So we'll be spending some time on understanding experiential learning as a process. So how to use gamification, and definitely the last one which we were just interacting before everybody joined in, board game mechanics. Yes, gamification as a process is online games as well as offline games. Offline games are the board games. Can everybody just mute themselves so that yeah, thank you. When you want to speak, you can always unmute and ask me questions. Feel free. So online and offline. Offline is predominantly the board games, the card games, which we have all grown up with. Ludo, snakes and ladders. These are the basic games. But how can we create our own games to teach a particular subject? So these are some of the concepts that we will be sharing. In fact, if you ask me, can I make a board game immediately after today's session? I would not promise you that, but yes, you will understand the mechanics. At least you will have the enough foundations to at least have a thought process on how to create a game. That is definitely going to be there. The foundations can definitely be set on how to create a board game or a card game. The basic mechanics will you understand this. So skeleton will be there. So it's just only building it upon it. Any point in time you get stuck when you're creating a game, you can always touch base with me. I'll try to help as much as I can from my perspective. That's okay. So let's get started. So first, let us understand gamification, the name. It's basically education through gaming. It's a type of pedagogy. That's what the gaming and education, that's where gamification comes in. There was a student here. Who was the student here? I forgot her name. Is there a yeah, I forgot her name. Priyanka. Priyanka, I think it might be repetitive, but just can you just tell me Twinkle Twinkle Little Star?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Can you just tell me the poem Twinkle Twinkle Little Star?
Yeah, it's Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
Lovely. Now let me ask a small question. You're right now in your first year?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there would be a lot of subjects matter that you're learning.
Yeah, exactly.
What exams over first semester?
No, actually we just have started our
Fair enough. There would be a subject called as law of contracts, business law. Are you studying that?
Actually we have business for customer value. I think we'll come to that also.
Okay. Marketing padhai kya?
Yeah, a little bit, like introduction started.
Okay. You did your degree in which?
BCom.
BCom. So you should know what is a void contract, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what's a void contract?
Void is empty. It's empty.
No, void contract. Void contract. As per business law.
It's a contract which has
hold on. I'm not testing anybody. Relax. This is not a viva. Relax.
I guess it's a that doesn't hold any, we'll say, meaning.
Okay. Can I ask a very honest question?
Yeah.
Are you guessing? Are you remembering? Or are you recalling it from memory? Are you 100% confident? Be
No,
honest.
I'm just trying to, make it up by understanding the words.
Recollecting something and making it up. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
When did we study law of contracts? Probably a year back.
No, actually,
2 years
I have
back.
experience of 2 years.
3 years back.
Yeah, exactly.
5 years back. When did we study Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? I can bet on it. Even faculty sitting here, we would have studied Twinkle Twinkle Star 30 years, 40 years back. But everybody recalls Twinkle Twinkle Little Star because we enjoyed learning at that age. Unfortunately, with due respects to all students and faculty members, are we enjoying studying today? It's a big question mark. Let's not answer, but let's be honest to admit it that today learning is no more fun than it used to be when we were children, right? When we were a child, in fact, one uncle will come to your house and Papa will say, "Beta, twinkle, twinkle, little star," and you would come like proudly, like, here comes Princess Diana or something, and you could actually go ahead and you could present it. The reason why we used to enjoy learning was it was fun. You used to dance the song, you used to sing the song, and I can bet on it. Any particular activity that you actually did enjoying, we will remember it for a lifetime. That is why the basic saying which goes, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So this is predominantly the aspect of gamification which falls under the experiential learning process. When you are doing something in a simulated environment, you don't forget it. It is as good as cycling. Once you know cycling, you will never forget cycling. But if it's a theory subject and I ask you a question after 5 days or 6 days, or sometimes it so happens that exam khatam ho gaya and somebody comes and asks you, what did you answer for this? And we'll say, don't ask me, no, exam is over. Okay, because we study only to pass exams. So that is one question mark which I want to leave it at a thought-provoking question. I don't want answers here. That's a different ball game. We can talk about it later. So let us now talk about board games. I love this phrase which I actually, with the board games to boardroom. It's definitely possible. Once at the end of the session, you will actually realize that through board games, you can actually make strategic decisions and simulate a boardroom. Somebody, you asked me a question? No. Okay. So let's go further. So these are the slides. I'll go a bit fast because I want to spend a lot of time on the actual process of creating games. But these are some of the games which is required. So the first advantage of gamification, we have divided in two processes. One is the psychological perspective or the emotional, and one is the logical. So this comes from an emotional perspective. When you are playing any game in a fun environment, okay, corporates we have shown to it that attrition becomes lesser because the ability to withstand pressure actually increases over people. Because when you do things or when you do decision making on a game or a simulated basis, you actually brace yourself to take a slightly higher level of risk without going into the pressure of going into the pressure of the fear of failing or the fear of being laughed at. Gamification has a powerful advantage of turning have to into want to, because when you play a game, it is no longer milega to chalega. I get this order to chalega, but in a game scenario, okay, you want to win because you want to prove to the opponent that you are better than them. So the biggest thing is when you play, dopamine hormone gets released, which is actually a happiness factor. You feel happy playing games. Okay, I mean board games or a game which involves strategy, and that brings in a desire to do more or outstretch yourself, and that brings rewards and that remotivates you. So it's actually a nice cycle. Even though it's vicious in nature, it's a nice cycle to enjoy. So that's basically what happens is it turns have to into want to. And the biggest advantage is it gives people a challenge for which they are psychologically prepared for. Okay, when we face challenge in real life, suddenly COVID came into place, and I can bet on it. February month, I'm very sure, I'll just give an example. Everybody were shocked. We did not know how to work from home. We were not ready to adapt to the change psychologically. We were more in a cribbing mode and saying, why me? Bhagwan ke paas jaake mere saath hi aisa kyun hota hai? But I was actually surprised, and actually kudos to all academicians. They started doing online classes faster than even I thought of. 6 months back, if I had gone and talked to 6 months back before COVID struck, if we had gone to any college and said, can we do an online meeting or can we do an online training? I'm very sure none of the faculties would have even thought of saying yes. Okay, it was kind of a taboo. But the moment COVID came, academicians across India and throughout the world, but India embraced it very fast. And we had platforms like Zoom and all, which came in and gave you all the software free of cost to be used, and people embrace that change. Okay, now these are some of the situations, but we tend to crib. But when it's a game, psychologically we are prepared for a challenge, so that peps you up. It builds tension, and that tension brings in a sense of urgency. Decision making, we all know, happens to a large extent. There's a very strong sense of urgency. Otherwise, normal people tend to postpone, or tend to stop taking decisions. But when in a game scenario, you tend to hold on, and you tend to take your decisions probably faster, and that sense of urgency builds a positive, what in stress we call it eustress, EUSTRESS. It's called eustress, which gets you to perform better. So that's the thing. And time constraints, you get used to it in a simulated environment, which can actually be related to a real-time environment later on. From a logic perspective, I shared this. Human beings, there is a natural desire to be curious. One of the big reasons why Big Boss is a big success. Okay, jokes apart, we have a natural desire to be curious, discover, and learn. So gamification as a process also helps motivate and reactivate our inherent thinking to explore and find solutions, or problem solving, quote unquote. Now, this one slide I want to spend some time on. With due respects to all faculties of these schools, nothing personal against any, because I work with a lot of these schools, and this is one thing which I would like to add my two pens of thoughts here, and also probably help. So the first thing is, we need to teach students decision making. Okay, but unfortunately, what happens is, we don't teach them to differentiate between data and noise, and we keep feeding them more data, more data, more data. Now this is where probably happens, and this is probably what we say: are we teaching students to vomit in exams, or are we teaching students to apply what concepts they have learned in real life problem scenarios? Even if they don't know the name of the particular concept, are they applying what they have picked up? So experiential learning helps students apply their thought process, or what we call as higher order learning. Okay, so decision making is the key. Now there are two ways. Okay, basically when I say decision making is the key, we need to teach them to interpret data. Okay, and this is some of the biggest thing. Unfortunately, call it lack of bandwidth in terms of time to complete syllabus. This thing sometimes goes for a toss. Processing data to seek information, we'll spend some time here. Experiential learning, there are two types. Okay, one is learning from past, and the other one is learning from future. Now these are both come under the category of experiential learning. You can learn from somebody else's experience, which is what we call as past experiences, and there the tool is case study. Using case studies, I'll share, Jagdish sir, I'll share the slides. You just have to text me a message. I'll share all the slides. Don't worry on that. Absolutely fine. Yeah. So case study is one tool which you can use to learn from somebody else's mistakes or success factors or the like. So case study is one particular pedagogy tool which is probably used across top B schools and used comparatively lesser in normal B schools, which should be changed according to me, because experiential learning, one of the key is learn from other people's mistakes. And the second thing is fresh experience. There simulation plays a role, or one of the pedagogy tool to make students or people learn new experiences which is not recorded as a data is the power of gamification, or what we call as simulation. Okay, like I know how to drive a flight, I know how to operate a body, operate people. That theoretical concepts is always there, but how do I put it into the actual use? You have to get into a simulation based environment. So that is predominantly what gamification does. It throws in situations, throws in challenges where probably you have to react to a situation which is cropping up probably for the first time in front of you. So it gives you an ability to apply your knowledge in problem solving. So these are predominantly two tools. One is to learn from past experiences, and the second one is to learn from or learn fresh experiences. Going further, on the simulation or gamification perspective, there are two things which we were interacting this before the session started. One is board game, or basically a game which is the offline mode, and one is the online simulation based game. There are some very good companies. IIMs use something called as Capstone. It's a fantastic company, but the pricing of that software is quite high, very high compared to from an affordability perspective. They charge you roughly some XYZ dollars. 3-digit dollars, 3 or 4 digit dollars also. And they charge you on a per user per time play basis per year. So every semester it gets renewed. So simulation predominantly is online, and offline could be anything. It could be board games, card games, or something which you can teach, create a game, and we'll share a lot of games and this. Let us understand the core differences between both the pluses and the minuses. The first thing is there is a very strong connect in in a board game scenario vis-a-vis process connect, where vis-a-vis an online game. Online games, even if it's a PUBG, you do not know where your opponent is. You do not know what the body language of that opponent is. You cannot even see it. Even in a PUBG kind of scenario, you can probably see your friends if they are in the same place. If they are also playing from their respective rooms, you will not be able to see them. So what happens? It's been connection. The connection between the gamers is predominantly a process-centric connect. Whereas here, it's face-to-face. We start reading body languages, and that's a very strong plus according to me. Where we start reading people, and I was talking to people earlier today. Students have time to send a message in WhatsApp, good morning in WhatsApp, but face to face when we meet people, we don't even exchange greetings. So this actually brings the personal connect back into the equation. Even of course during the non-COVID times, today it's predominantly online. Yeah. Board game has a challenge. This is a negative in board game. The challenge is the variables gets it's less flexible with variables. Every new variable you have to introduce a different type of mechanics. It could be board, it could be randomness involved through cards, coins, XYZ, and it probably makes the flexibility lesser. But in an online scenario, because at the end of the day it's a software and an algorithm, you can actually play with your the flexibility is amazing. You can actually play with randomness and still make it very simple for the end user. The back-end complexity need not translate into a front-end complexity for the end user or the gamer. Okay. Cost-wise, board games are very economical. Yes, the initial cost of making the software is definitely high, and that's one of the biggest disadvantages from a day-to-day purpose, from a B-school perspective. Kinesthetic and non-kinesthetic. This is one point. Let me give an example here. Suppose that we are playing the age-old game of Monopoly. All of us would have played Monopoly. Then there's paisa involved, and then let it be a dummy cash. Let them be demonetized notes. Okay. But what happens is when you take that note from your hand, or somebody is taking that money from your hand, you actually feel the pinch. Okay, I'll give an example. If somebody takes 100 rupees from your purse, you actually feel, 10 rupees from your purse, you actually feel the pinch. But 100 rupees gets debited from your bank balance, and when SMS comes, sometimes you don't feel the pinch. Okay, because the emotions are less in an online text or a transaction detail which just gets thrown at you. But when somebody takes money from you physically, you actually feel the pinch. Okay, and in a board game, when there is cash involved, especially dummy cash involved, and when some money is going out, the ability to do course correction is faster in a board game scenario with respect to loss making compared to a simulated game, because you don't feel that the money has got down because it was only an entry which got kept reducing. The balance kept reducing in your bank balance. But in a board game, when money is being given to the moderator or the banker, you actually feel the pinch instantly because you can see money going out. So that's kinesthetic or emotional appeal is very strong in a board game vis-a-vis a simulation-based game or the online game. So this is predominantly a list of differences. Anybody has a question, just unmute and ask, because this is one question which came up. Okay. Now we come to the mechanics and the process. Here I'll spend some time, and I want people to ask me questions because we are talking about a process to create games. So any point in time you don't understand anything, just ask me. If I can definitely help, I'll answer that then and there. Okay. Now, strategies. Predominantly a player can do 3 strategies: attack, defend, or maintain status quo. Predominantly these are the 3 things that you can do. Okay, in some games you can give your chance to somebody else. Okay, that's probably, I will not say that will also fall under attack and defend also, but some games you can give your chance to somebody else, some other opponent, and enjoy the game. But that would also be a strategy based on attack or defend. But these are predominantly 3 variables that is possible: either I attack, I defend, or I maintain status quo. Now, from a board game gamification perspective, okay, there is the impact of something else. These are not in my control. These are not, this is not in my control, but external party. The change in some external variables in something else is going to impact me. First one is system created. The game board story. The story of the board game or story of the card game the skeleton of it can create impact. I'll share with you with 2 examples later on, and I'll probably explain it. But any board game, the how you play the game, that is going to have an impact. The skeleton of it, the storyline. And the second part is competition created situations is definitely going to impact you. Somebody is coming behind you to kill you in the board game, so you need to make adjustments, go into that this thing home where you are safe, or you make sure that you go faster than the other person and move that coin faster. So you take corrective action based on 2 things. So situations which create impact, one can be system created or they can be competition created. So this is predominantly in a nutshell the 2 things which is going to matter in a game. Okay, now I'm going to ask some basic questions. How many people feel Snakes and Ladder is a game of pure luck, 100% luck? Whatever comes, I will play. Can somebody share? Or they feel there is strategy involved in Snakes and Ladders? Hello?
It's only luck.
100% luck? Absolutely right. Snakes and Ladder is 100% luck. If the dice says 4, you have to move 4. You can't think and say what to do. Correct? Na? So it is a game of 100% luck. Can we use this to teach a particular subject? First of all, let me share with you. Now tell me this. How many people know about the origin of Snakes and Ladders? Can we teach serendipity as a business concept? Even Warren Buffett says there is something called as serendipity there, where you get unfavored luck, okay, at a time when probably you needed it. All of us know that Indian Snakes and Ladders, there is a snake at 99, which I was so close to success, okay, or so-called success, okay, and I did one wrong decision, and from 99 I actually lost my market share. Yahoo search engine was the #1 ranked search engine in 1999 when Google was just coming in. Google went and told them, please acquire us or fund us. They said no. It was a historical change. In fact, in the entire history of marketing, from my knowledge, is a challenger did not become a leader. Okay, normally a challenger is the one who becomes a leader. Here comes a person brazing all first mover advantage from a no man. In 6 months' time becomes the market leader of a particular industry. That was the history of Google. So ladders can teach you that. I mean, this is a classic game that can actually tell people that one decision at 99 can also bring you to 26, for example. So from a bachalo ke liye wo better hai. No, but here comes a technical question to all people involved. Can I make this game, Snakes and Ladder game, a game where I remove luck, or not eliminate luck 100%, but I also bring in strategy? Can anybody tell me how to make Snakes and Ladders also a game where strategy gets involved? Anybody?
You develop your own dice, loaded dice.
You mean to say a biased dice?
Yes.
No. Biased dice will make it. But still, dice where 3 comes, I have to move 3. Where is the strategy there?
Like Shakuni.
Even then, you're talking about that becomes skill in rolling the dice. That is skill.
Right.
I'm talking about strategy, where I use my brains and do something. How do I make Snakes and Ladders, the traditional game which is 100% luck, bring in strategy in this game? Can anybody? You can do anything that you want. Any suggestions? Slowly, I'm getting you people to start thinking from a game perspective. That's the only objective I'm asking questions. So please feel free to just come out with answers. Any wild guesses? Anybody? Okay, I'm giving you a hint, something on the screen. Now can somebody say?
Playing it alone.
Sir, you may change the path taken by a snake.
Possible. Now I gave you a hint. I'm just showing it again. See the screen.
Okay. Yeah.
What happened? If I bring Snakes and Ladders with 4 coins per person, don't you think slowly strategies got involved?
Yes.
Which coin to move depends upon the person moving the coin, correct na? How a randomness of bringing in more coins brought in the ability for a person to now start thinking which coin gives me less risk. Suppose I am at 94 and there is one person exactly below me. I will want to move this coin faster and move away from him. Okay, but I don't mind risking a coin which is far below. Okay, my second coin is far below. I might probably sacrifice that for the sake of not sacrificing my other coin. Correct?
Yes.
So bringing in more coins builds in decision making capacity in a game. Is this one point clear? That was the objective of this slide.
No, but I would differ.
Yes, ma'am.
Differ
Please.
because Snakes and Ladder is a game where you cannot add coins.
No. I'm saying we are creating games.
Oh, okay.
Ma'am, my objective here is how to bring strategy in a game of Snakes and Ladders by putting in 4 coins per person. Don't you think a classic game where 100% luck based game is now also dependent to a certain extent on strategy? That's my observation. I'm not making that you change the don't call it Snakes and Ladders, call it business Snakes and Ladders, no problem.
Okay, fine. Okay.
My thought process is to create, basically to understand that increasing coins makes me to decide which coin to move, thereby incorporating strategy in a board game. This is one parameter. Is this accepted? Yogini ma'am?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
let's go further. So that's exactly what happens. I'm sure we all would have started playing Snakes and Ladders and then migrated to Ludo. Correct? Then migrated to Ludo. Now Ludo gives you the same flexibility. Why decision making came in here? Because there are 4 coins. Now I have a question and anybody can answer. You are yellow. You are yellow coins. There are 4 yellow coins on the board. Okay, 2 on the left side, 1 on the bottom, 1 on the extreme right. And you rolled 4 on the dice. Okay, which yellow coin will you move? Anybody? I mean, there are 4 options. You can move the yellow and cut the red. You can move the yellow and cut the blue. You can move this yellow to another safe corner, or take the one on the green and move it forward.
So I will take that blue one. I will kill that.
You will kill blue. Can I know why?
Yeah, because then I'll get one more chance to play and I can go forward.
Okay, but you will get one more chance here also, right? If you kill the red.
Yeah, but I won't be like going ahead, no?
But
It's-
understand something, if you kill the blue, the green is behind you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'll get one chance and
Right,
I'll
but there is a chance that the yellow, second round you put 2. Okay. Now
yeah.
the yellow which is behind the green now comes in front of the green, and if the green cuts you, your yellow which was so close to your home ground, just 1, 2 quarters, 3/4 done, will go back to the home.
So, but to get to home, you need to take risks. So,
Fair enough, fair enough. So you want to kill the blue one. Anybody else with a different thought process? I am not saying right, wrong. I'm just getting in discussions. Anybody, please, with a different thought process or the same thought process, want to add a point? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, Subramania sir. Please, sir.
I would also kill the blue one because the uncertainty and the risk factor is less compared to the other points.
How is it less?
Because
One second. The extreme risk factor is less in the yellow one versus on the green. There is
see,
nobody
what-
below because that green will go inside. It is not going to come behind you.
Yeah, in my perspective, going back to home is one of the major risk in the Ludo part. So
That
in
is it is not a risk. It is basically a goal.
I mean, home part is like when you kicked out of the pawn, like or when it's smashed. So
Fine.
in that case, blue one is the most nearest one where I can get back, and if I roll out a 6 again, I can come back quickly to the game and again start my strategies playing.
Fair enough. And
So
I'm not debating your
comparatively-
point. I'm just adding one point, saying that cutting that yellow is a decision which you took not to minimize risk, but basically taking risk to reach goal faster.
Correct. Yeah.
You're actually taking more risk compared to moving the one on the green. You're taking more risk.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people tell me they cut the blue one because they feel blue will win the game. Did anybody think like that? Blue's 3 coins are safe. If we miss a chance to cut this blue will win the game easily.
Yes.
If anybody thought like that, that's
Yes.
one thought. That is Jagdish sir. That is one thought process. Kill competition who is the market leader first. You will come into market faster. Your brand value increases faster. Okay, now I'm slowly connecting a game of Ludo to business. Now we can teach leaders challenge, leader strategy, follower strategy, everything from a game of Ludo. And I'm not saying that we create such situations, but if you are able to show this to our students and tell them what they do, I can bet on it. I've used strategic brand management. I've used Ludo to teach. Even a game like Ludo can be used to teach subjects. So what happens is, people come out with different opinions based on their strategy. Why they will move this yellow, why they will cut blue, why they will cut red, why they will be defensive. Absolutely fine. Every strategy that students have used in the game of Ludo actually finds its resonance even in a brand strategy management as well. So can't we teach strategic brand management also? And the best part about using games to teach even a game like Ludo is because it is a game of Ludo, people come out with their opinions and the class becomes interactive. They argue. Okay, fantastic. That's exactly what we want. We want students to think about concepts and argue. Why will they take more risk? Why they will take less risk? Everything can be related to a business model at the end of the day from even a simple game like Ludo. But I'm not saying we stop at Ludo. We'll create more games. But this is one example. Now the theory of games. Now I'm going to come to the next concept. First was more number of coins brings in randomness. Now I'm giving you the second one. The second situation impact. How many people now in the game of Ludo, if only 2 people are playing, okay, if only 2 people are playing, and if you have taken a massive lead of the other person's coin because the other person did not put 6 to come out of his home and start the campaign, in all likelihood you have won the race. Agreeing with me? Yes or no?
Yes.
If you have taken a massive lead and the other person is very much behind you, it's going to take extreme luck on the other person to come and cut you. If it's a 2-player scenario, this is a hypothetical situation. This theory got broken by this game. Okay, I'm sorry. By this game. This game called Chaukabara, or in Tamil they call it Dayam. How many people have played this game? Anybody?
Yes.
This is Ludo. This is absolutely Ludo. But only thing is, what they say is the yellow will move one circle here and move in this path in the enter as shown the arrow mark. Can all of you see the arrow marks? Can you see the arrow marks on the board and understand the path of yellow?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's fine.
Now what happens is, red's path on the opposite direction is also very similar. Red moves this way. Now understand this, yellow has taken one full circle and taken a turn. There are multiple paths where a person from behind can catch up you because the path is designed not in one-way fashion. Where you have taken a lead, nobody can catch you. Every intersection where this person enters, your lead of one half of that square is nullified. What you would have done 1.5, that guy when he's entering with 1, he can enter you and he can be ready to cut you. So that is possible. So the competition spirit, when I say situations impact, the layout of the board is the second one which can impact your decision making or can impact and bring about, create an impact on the efficacy of the game. So this is the second one. Like competition can be late in the market but still beat you. Aaj ke tarikh pe classic example Jio. You know, that's not first mover advantage, all look good, but Jio came in late from behind, caught up, and today is number 1 in the Indian market. They have killed competition. Okay, so they're still fighting it out, but still, to a large extent, coming from behind also, people can catch you up. So that's one classic example. Now coming to the Ludo example, I wanted to start something. How do I take Ludo to the next level? How do I bring in more randomness? First one is luck factor. We all know the color that we selected probably gives you a choice, because if you are behind the competition, you have an advantage. Okay. Sorry, if you are ahead of the competition, you are behind the competition, you have an advantage because you can wait for the competition to come with the last mile and you can still kill them. So that's an advantage. Okay. Some of the strategy based, we said number of coins. Now, if I just the snake and ladder example, now if I ask a small question, how do I take Ludo to the next level? What extra things can I do to take Ludo to the next level? Can somebody share some extra ideas? Just like I said, more number of coins. Can somebody come out with other ideas? Snakes and ladders, I said more coins. Now, game of Ludo, how do I take Ludo to the next level? Can I put something else, mirch masala?
Yeah, actually, in the app of Ludo that we have on phone, there are like 6 people can play together.
Fantastic. Okay. No, I'm talking about the 4-player scenario. What else can I do? So what else can I add? Because I'm the creator of that game. What else can I add so that the game becomes much more of strategy?
So we can eliminate the star points where.
Okay, fine. We can eliminate star points, so there is no safe haven.
Yeah.
But then it becomes a running race, right? Then then it becomes more luck based than less luck based. It becomes more luck. Correct? If you eliminate star, it becomes more luck based rather than less luck.
Yeah, it can be to some extent.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else?
Legally, there is no option of
No,
getting
legally
merged.
chhod do. Legally chhod do. I'm saying we are creating a game.
Okay, we can have an option of getting merged with an opponent and play a game.
Beautiful. Cartel. Make cartels. Okay. You can make a cartel. You can say red and green. Though opponents say you don't cut me, I will not cut you. Possible? Hello, am I
Yeah,
audible?
this is all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Four
Kind-
players are
kind of
playing, but I have an underground setting with one other person. You can say you can have a setting with one person, you will not cut that person, they will not cut you. A cartel. Okay.
Correct.
Coalition government. Not a problem. You can do that. So that could be one of the clauses that you can have a cartel. It is, if you can make that rule, that is one line. Anything else? Now slowly we are coming out to understanding mechanics. Okay, I'll give out some ideas. Can we have dummy cash? If I cut you and I pay you some money, dummy cash, so everybody starts with the same round of cash. Okay, and when you come to home, you get more cash. And if somebody cuts you, if you have money to pay cash, then that you can still be at the same place where you are. One thought process.
We are mixing Ludo and business.
Absolutely. If somebody cuts me, I pay rent, Jesa. If somebody comes, it's the other way around. There, the person who comes later on has to pay money. But in this case, I am not leaving my imprint. There they leave imprints. Here I am saying where the place where I am, if you come and cut me, I pay you some cash. And when I pay you cash, okay, that's it. So if I don't have cash, then my coin comes back to this thing. And I can put a rule. In the end, it does not matter who comes first or who comes in the end. How much cash you have is the winner. Now you start thinking whether to cut, not to cut, whether to sacrifice, whether to keep this thing. You probably start thinking there's more thought process getting involved in the game. That's it. Whether it is good, bad, we will not talk about that. But I'm saying bringing in a third dimension of what we call as currency, okay, or coins, okay, or digital currencies, which we call up. The moment we bring in currency, that gives you one more ability to create randomness in the strategy in the game. That is the point which I'm making. Is that okay? Hello? Am I still boring? Am I boring? Hello?
No, not at all.
Okay, fine, because no reaction. Okay, so that's the next level. So predominantly what we did, this company that I actually mentored actually came out with a particular game called a Sales Guru to learn time management, where we involved all the three things that we spoke of right now. A path layout, anybody can enter you at any person and cut, because this is exactly what happens in sales. I worked for 6 months with a customer in a B2B environment where the sales cycle time is long, and suddenly last minute entry somebody comes and probably they might even win with that order. You cannot say I have been old in the system, I should get the order. So we have created one game on sales management, funnel management, and I've used it for a lot of corporate trainings as well. So this is one of the nice games where it's a simple game where we have lead, prospects and negotiation pins which gets traded off by everybody. Somebody cuts something and we take it to that level. So that's one game. Okay, just to give you an idea, we have this company has around 10 games. We'll talk about that later. That's not the urgent part of the agenda. Okay, now we come to creating your game. Rule number one, you need to play a lot of games. Okay, to create games, kahin na kahin to you should have played a lot of games, or you need to play a lot of games. The more number of games you play, your mind starts working in understanding mechanics and being able to sync different mechanics of board game mechanics into one place. So because you will, when we talk about a strategy based game, it will have multiple mechanics built in a single game. Pick a game style which suits you and modify that. Like I said, take Ludo also. You can modify Ludo and take it to the next level. Call about Chinese checkers. We'll talk about all the mechanics of board games in the coming slides. Sketch it out. This is basically process. Plan the rules against the layout. Build the board, handwritten board. Don't spend money in creating boards. Handwritten boards are the best to practice, because there will be a lot of teething problems, a lot of things which you would not have envisaged. It's only a piece of paper with a drawing. We can always keep changing it. And to introduce randomness, I've taught you three basic randomness. One is dice can bring you randomness, coins can bring you randomness, currency can bring you randomness. A combination of all these three can bring you randomness. Okay, when I say currency, it need not be physical dummy currency. It could be even coins, which you win, which you take to the next level. Now, script writing a board game, I'll spend some time here. This is one of the classics which is required. It is like writing a movie story. It's exactly the same. Okay. So first thing is, when we write a story, Normally, you ask anybody who's into drama or theater, first take skeleton of the storyline is what is the first thing that they put. Then what they do, they add a fleshes. The flesh, they add flesh. In the flesh, what they do, they introduce characters. They say here the protagonist is the hero, this guy, or hero, heroine, or it could be an inanimate object. And this is the characteristics that will be shown by this person. And then they bring the plots, the plot or the subplot, or what we in layman terms, twists and turns, the suspense part of it. Even though, now suspense can be created by two things. I know this is going to come, but I'm still waiting to see how it is coming. This is one of the aspects of movie making. I know it is going to come, but I'm still waiting to see how it comes to fulfill it. The second one is I don't expect it to come, and it comes clang and it kind of takes you by awe. Whoa, wow. Okay, sometimes anti-climax both there. You think this is how it's going to end, and then there's a switch at the end, and it's a total twist at the end. So these are some of the things which you put into the story after you have defined the characters, after you have done the skeleton of the story. And then you have the last part is this. There should be a conclusion, right? The climax part. There should be a conclusion. The hero wins or loses. Okay, hero or heroine wins or loses. What is the success factor of the protagonist in the movie? Shadi hona could be a success factor. Okay, marrying the person could be a success factor. Escaping from prison could be a success factor. Whether it happens or does not happen, that's a secondary ball game. That's part of the story writing or the twist and the turn. But I am defining that this movie is going towards this. The hero and heroine will marry. The hero will become a billionaire. The hero will become a don. He will become a cop. He will raise his kid properly. It could be anything, but that would have been defined while writing the story. So this is predominantly the 4 top things for writing a storyline. Same thing has to be applied for writing a board game, or what we call a script writing a board game. First thing is, I'm just drawing the analogy, the parallel of what is a storyline. Here, the storyline is the board or the layout. It could be a cards game. There should be still how many cards? 50 cards, 52 cards, 28 mein. Jack, you don't have 3, 4, 2, 3. 88 mein you have 2, 3. Jack, 9, King, Queen, and 10. Yeah, 10 and ace. So you have decided how many cards to bring. That's basically the layout part of it. The characters depicted here are the coins, are the cards, or the currencies. Predominantly, they are the twists and turns is the swing of randomness that you are going to have with various factors that we spoke of previously. And the last one is, points, currencies, goal, the winning factor. How do you define who is the winner? Highest currency, the first one to finish the game, the last one to finish the game, the one with all the cards, the one with the least number of cards. So how do you decide who is the winner in the game? So this is predominantly the comparison. Why I drew a comparison here is because if you understand the storyline of a board game, you can actually create this easily. So just like story writing or a drama writing or a script writing, you need to do the same thing here. It could even be a story which gets converted to a board game. In fact, vice versa has happened a lot. There are strong game movies which have actually come, or the Game of Thrones is actually a board game which got converted to a movie. So this is possible, but the story writing has to be there. It is not too much complex. You can actually, if you put your minds to it, it becomes easy. It takes a little bit of trial and error, a little bit of perseverance, not even motivation. It's a little bit of perseverance, and then you will be able to create games. If you have the ability of, if you have seen a lot of games and played a lot of games, it kind of fits into the bill. But still, I'll talk to you about all the mechanics. But anybody has got any questions till now can ask me so that I don't go too fast. Any questions on this slide or any of the previous slides, or any question in such? Anybody? No questions means dangerous. Hello? Am I audible? Hello, mic test.
Yeah, you're audible.
Shall I go further? Okay. Please ask questions. I would love to answer questions because that makes me feel that I'm sharing something. Otherwise, it looks like a one-way session. Anyway, it looks
Sir,
like
I've
solid.
tried with some of the
Yeah, Asha ma'am. Yes, Asha ma'am.
Yeah. Sir, I've not tried with the games in the college, but yes, I've tried with some of the games with my daughter where we have memory games which we play with the cards.
Okay,
Like
try
we-
the Chinese game, memory game, my Jong or something. That's supposed to be a fantastic game.
Okay. Mhm.
Because when you do memory game with normal playing cards, okay, or pictures which we can easily relate to, our memory is definitely stronger.
Okay.
But when you do it with a language which we don't know,
Hmm.
It adds to more complications.
Okay. Okay.
Because I know I can relate. Apple is here, or this 7 of hearts is here, 8 of hearts is here. That number recollection can get this thing. When it is a Chinese character, I don't even know how do I store it in my mind. That becomes tougher. So if your objective is memory game, then you try that. It's called one of the best memory games. It starts MAI Chong or something. It's a Chinese game, but check that out.
Okay. Okay.
It's a
Okay.
nice game. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, keep the questions coming in any point in time. Let's go further. So basic rules for creating games. These are some of the games which when I was mentoring this company, we learned a lot of things. Sometimes if your game doesn't have a winner, it is of no use. Okay, that should be a clear-cut winner in a game. There are sometimes we create games, there is no winner. It is only learning. Don't create such games because neither students nor we will be interested in playing it, or we play it maximum once and then the interest goes down. So don't do that. Second, the instruction for the game we should be able to convey it in 5 to 10 minutes time. Little bit of buffer, 10 minutes is fine. If your instruction takes more than 10 minutes to convey, then somewhere the game is not going to excite people, because even though these instructions might not be complicated, but with the fact that somebody takes more than 5 minutes to explain how to play the game, psychologically the audience starts thinking, oh my god, this is going to be a complex game. So avoid bringing complexities in the game in the first scenario. Make them play the basic game, then you can start bringing in complexities in the second part, or a tier 2 to it. So that is the third thing. Should be replayable. If you're Robin, can I mute you? Ashwin, can you just mute yourself? Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Ashwin. Yeah. So basically, the second thing is the game should be replayable. What I mean by replayable is, if the game is played once and they know that for this situation, this is what we need to do. Okay, and there is not much of complexity or randomness in it for the second time, and that some of these games are not replayable. Like I'll give you an example. If you know how to play tic-tac-toe in a 3x3 column, so the tic-tac-toe XO, okay, I'm sure once you know the basic concept, then nobody can win with you. The maximum it will become is a draw. Okay, whether you're playing first or you're playing second. So predominantly what happens, in the second time you don't play the game again once you know how to play the game. So once that is like this, for this move, this is the move. For this move, this is the move. If you know this, then there is no point in creating such kind of games. And the most important thing is, most of the games from teaching purposes should finish in 60 minutes to maximum 90 minutes. If the game is going to go beyond 90 minutes, from a classroom session also it doesn't make sense, and from an excitement session also it doesn't make sense. One of the classic examples, Monopoly. We can play Monopoly for 2 days also. You keep the setup same and you can keep playing it again and again and again. Okay, so that is one of the basic guidelines, not rules, guidelines. There should be a clear-cut winner, defined winner. You do this, you win the game, coming first, coming second, time-based, currency-based, killing-based, card-based, whatever. That should be a winner. Instruction should be easy and should be shared in 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes, should be replayable, and should finish in 60 minutes to 90 minutes maximum. This is basic guidelines for creating games. Now let us understand the basic board game mechanics, the basic bricks of it. The first one is, which we call as mechanic, is called as push your luck. This is purely luck. The classic example is snakes and ladders. I'll not spend much time. Either purely luck. You draw the dice or you take out a card. Whatever that card says, you have to do. It is purely push your luck. So that is the first genre, or what we call first mechanics, pushing your luck. Second is grid movement. Okay, how many people have played this game? Anybody who has not played this game? Anybody who has not played this game? It's called different. Adu Puli, Tiger Goat.
I haven't played.
You haven't played. Okay, this is a game which has got 15 coins, which are supposed to be goat or sheep, and there are 3 tigers. The tigers will be on top, just like Chinese checkers. If the tiger can jump over one coin and go to the next empty place, then that goat gets killed. So the objective of this is the goats will win if less than 4 goats have got killed, and the tiger wins if it kills more goats. Okay. Now this is a game of strategic grid movements, which we call as, there is a path. Chinese checkers is one example of grid movement. Chess is also an example of grid movement, but this is the most basic game of grid movement. It's the most basic game, so that I put this slide, because Even XO. Tic-tac-toe is also a basic game of grid movement only. Okay, so basically to understand that this could be one of the parameters. Now, if you look at it, there is no dice here. There is no luck here. This is 100% strategy. For every move, you have a counter move, but there is randomness built in here by number of disparity in the number of coins. The starting layout creates a system generated situation of impact. Okay, so that's how we play this game. Some examples is just my strong recommendation to everybody. There is a beautiful game called as Hive, Hive. Okay, you don't have to buy it, but at least watch in videos in YouTube of this game called Hive. It is a classic game of grid movement, at par with chess, and very addictive and very easy compared to chess. But I would recommend you all to take notes and Hive ka game ko aap thoda sa research karo. It's a fantastic game. It's a game on hardcore strategy. The classic example, the mechanics that it follows is grid movement. Okay, and just to understand what is grid movement, XO or Adupuli or chess Hive, all these are examples. Chinese checkers, these are all examples of grid movement. Third mechanics is area control. How many? All of you have played this in school times, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all of you know this game, right? This game comes under the mechanics of area control, dot and line. Okay, basically what you do, you build areas. Okay, you by putting one stroke, you connecting two dots with a line, you actually start capturing areas. Okay, so this is a game on area control. Another example and a must play game according to me. Every bacha log, especially if you have kids and you want to share what games kids should play, Catan is a game that you should engage with kids. Catan is an amazing game because it's a combination of area game, and a lot of mechanics, and it's a hardcore strategy game. It's on area control where you build civilizations. Catan also has an online version, but board game में जो मजा है वो online में नहीं आता है. So that is a very strong recommendation from my perspective. Try Catan. But all these things come under the mechanics of area control. This is an example of how you build areas. You start building islands, and then we total the number of islands to find the winner. Okay, real time. The advantage or the what we say real time is your movement impacts my movement. Real time is where the impact because of a competition is much more stronger. I make my counter move after you make a move. One more example which all of you understand is chess. You make a move, based on your move, I make a move. Based on my move, you make a move. So it is basically real time. That is basically when you make a move, I think, I ponder, I make my strategy, defense or attack based on your move and vice versa. So this keeps copying to and forth. So this type of mechanics in a game is called as real time. Scrabble is the easiest example. I keep on alphabets and then you take that alphabet. Or in childhood, we would have played this game called Battleship, which is available in the market, but you don't need to buy Battleship. You can play Battleship in a piece of paper. All of you have played Battleship? You don't need to buy the game. It's basically I have 3 ships, 4 tanks or whatever, and we put those marks there, and the other person will tell out the grid where he's going to bomb. So suppose if the other person without seeing my board says B2, then I put a cross on this B2 and I say this one attack on, basically you have bombed my one place, a successful bombing. So he will put a mark B2 mein there is something. Okay, and in his score he will keep one sheet of mine where wherever he is bombing he will put those marks, and then they will try to attack all my warfront ships and my navy vessels, and we have to do the same there in his sheet. So it's alternate. I play, you play, I play, you play. So I get to bomb once and then you get to bomb me once. So that's how it keeps going. So this is the game to understand real-time strategy. So this is one mechanics. Okay, chess also involves a strategy. Somebody has a question? Tanvi ma'am, I'm muting you. Yeah, you can unmute later on if you have a question. Nidhi, you have a question?
Yeah, is it like the game of bingo?
Bingo is housey, right?
Yeah.
Bingo is luck. Bingo is pure luck. Bingo, the mechanics is pure luck. Player luck.
Yeah.
Bingo, there is nothing like you have a strategy. The only strategy you can do is buy a lot of tickets. That is probability. You buy a lot of tickets and you have a better probability. So it's still not strategy. It's only a game of probability. No, here you can just Google and find out Battleship. And there was a movie which came from a board game. Battleship was actually a game. There are games available. but you can just go and search all these games in YouTube. Now I'm giving you food for thought. Battleship is a game which you can play with paper and pencil. So you can, when you're searching, write paper and pencil Battleship, you will get the entire description. And if you stay in a PG with roommates or somebody, this is one game which brings in a lot of strategy to know when to attack. Your logical thinking, analytical skill sets start improving. Okay, and it's a fun way to improve your analytical skill sets. Okay, or probably one-to-one later on I can take it up. Let me just go to the next one. So predominantly real-time mechanics is I play and then you play based on my move and then I play based on your move. That's how the sequence of events is. And what you do has an impact on my market or my game, and what my action has going to have an impact on your game. So that's how you keep changing and you be proactive to change. Pattern recognition. This is another mechanics. This I am sure anybody has played this game. Again, you don't need a board. You can do it in paper and pen. Yes, no.
No.
Okay, let me explain this game. This is a game which again helps in a very strong analytical skill sets. I'll give an example. Basically, what this is a 2-player game. Okay, suppose I think of a 4-alphabet word. Okay, in this case, I have thought of LOVE, love. Okay, now you have to give me one by one. You'll have got 10 chances to find out the word that I have said. I have thought of. I will write this word in a piece of paper and keep it to the side. And first word that suppose you say FISH. Now understand, in fish, F is not there in love, I is not there in love. Vaishnavi ma'am, can I just mute you? Thank you. Okay, so understand this, how this game works is, in fish, F is not there in love, I is not there in love, S is not there in love, H is not there in love. So what I tell you 0 bulls and 0 cows, which means these 4 letters are not there in my word. Then this next guy comes and next word comes is vain, V-A-I-N. Now if you look at it, A-I-N is not there in my word, but V is there, but the place is wrong. Understanding? V is there, but V is supposed to be the 3rd letter, but here V is the first place. So I say 1 cow. Cow means one of the 4 alphabets is there, but it is in the wrong place. Then this person says lane. Now look at it, A and N is not there, but L and E is there. Okay, but they are there at the right place. So I say 2 bulls, that is bullseye. 2 words, 2 alphabets are there at the right place at the right other thing, and 0 is there. No words, no alphabets at the wrong place. Then this guy feels from the first one, B and ILE is there. So in this I say 1 at the wrong place, 2 at the right place. So based on this pattern recognition, that guy tends to find out that this word is LOVE. Now the same game is available as in the market as Mastermind. Basically color combinations are there. This is the color combination that this person has set, and the score point, the guy sitting on the opposite end has to decide the color, and we will give ratings as to how much are right at the right place and how much are there at the wrong place. So Dixit is one more game on pattern recognition. Mastermind is a very powerful game, but again, to play Mastermind you can even use this kind of scenario. Your logical ability as well as English ability to understand 4-digit words increases. So this is a very strong game, very strong recommendation on pattern recognition. This is one more mechanics, the basic mechanics which I am talking of. So any questions on card game mechanics? On the board game mechanics, I think with these 4 combinations you can make a lot of, you can play with a lot of formations. Any questions? Anybody? I hope I get some questions before I go to card combinations. Hello? Am I going too fast?
No, actually, we haven't played this maybe, so that's
okay.
why.
No problem. Okay, but you can ask me any questions. Okay, let me finish off this and we'll probably throw it open for questions. Okay, card game mechanics. Let us understand some basic games. Again, basic mechanics. Hand management. Basically, I don't show what I have in my hand and I manipulate the cards and I play it depending upon what I need to share, what I don't need to share. So that is called hand management. Okay, there's a question which has come. Somebody texted me in chat. Okay, thank you. Okay, so hand management cards, I'm sure all of you have played Uno. Uno is a game predominantly from a card hand management perspective. You don't show until what you want to show. It's not like an open table where everything like Scrabble nahi hai, where everything is there displayed on that and the thing. In fact, there is a card game called as Lexicon, very similar to Scrabble. It's available in Amazon. It's a card game, Lexicon, grammar. You play rummy with words and you make the words and you display it in front of other things. That also comes under hand management. Anybody plays bridge, it's one of the at par games like chess. In fact, chess and bridge go hand in hand. Wherever there's a chess column in newspaper, below that there will be a bridge column. Bridge is a fantastic card game. Gives you a lot of card mechanics, and it is at par with chess in terms of using your brains and analytical skill sets. Though those things come under hand management. Bidding and auction is part and parcel of card game mechanics, but of late it's also coming into board game. Of late, yeah, it's also come into board games also. Bidding and auction is something. One example is 28, 29, 88, 543, 532, Mendicott, Mumbri, Das Pakadnega, Raja Rani. All these things fall under the mechanics of trump. Wherever you have trumps, where you bid, I will take 5 tricks, I will take 6 tricks, I will take Haath Pakadne ka bolta hai Hindi mein. I will take this much tricks and auction. Okay, where you know even poker games also come into auction, bidding and auction. All those things. But even without poker and all these gambling games, these are games which you auction, saying that out of this 13 hands, I will take this many tricks. That's the kind of games. So that is one mechanics. The most simplest 2-player game is 7-8. 7-8 in auction game, where out of those hands, how much hands you will take. That's the kind of thing. But some of the good games are 28 and 29 is the same. 88 is another game, and 3-player game is 543 or 532, where you bid and then you take that many hands with the trump being disclosed. If you can lay your hands on some of these games and understand these games, you can actually create some card games as well. Again, bridge falls here as well. Bridge will fall in most of the mechanics. Deck building. Now here what you do, it is very similar to a hand management game, but here you tend to assemble sets. You make like rummy, where you tend to make sets in your hand and then showcase it to the world. Okay, until the set is getting complete. It's not like Uno where you play an action card. Here there are no action cards. You try to collect the same sets. So that is predominantly what is deck building. Table play, very similar to hand management, but here what happens is just like it's exact opposite of hand play. It is what is displayed on the table which calls for the interesting thing. A lot of action cards. There was this classic game of bluff. I'm sure all of you would have played bluff. That falls under table play. 2 jacks, and you would have kept a 7 and a 5. So if that bluff is called off, you take back the cards. But if somebody places a card about yours, then your bluff is valid and it keeps going. So you should know when to lie, when not to lie. It's a classic game from kids' perspective. I will also use it as a very strong game to improve negotiations. Okay, Am I audible? I got disconnected. Am I there?
Yes.
Audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Sorry for the inconvenience. My power supply went in. I've come in my backup. Yeah. So where was I? Okay. So
Bluff and
bluff. So bluff is the game where I'm not advocate of teaching kids to lie, but that does play a lot of a role where negotiations gets helped you understand, and body language reading. I think a classic game to read body language is bluff. As a kid, if you are very good in bluff, that means your body language, maintaining your postures, it's a very strong. The similar game which come called Mafia, which is it's neither a card game nor a board game, but Mafia is a very strong game to build communication, reading body languages, etc., and logical reasoning, arguing with logic. We'll talk about that later. Communication games, this is what we're talking about. Mafia is a very similar game. You can do your Google searches. In fact, to build communication and in a fun way and teach students the art of negotiation, lying, okay, with due respects, Jude Bolna, and the right frame of mind, arguments, logical interpretations. Mafia is a very powerful game. Again, there are various versions in in my family. We keep playing this a lot. It's one of the very good games. Pictionary is again a communication game from a drawing perspective. You draw this and you communicate that. Again, it's a communication based game. Truth or Dare is also one game which is a game based on communication. So these all come under the genre of communication based. So predominantly board games have got three genres: card games. It could be a combo: card games, board games, and communication games, where you give them a combination. And then connections to business are predominantly at the end of the day. Like I said, why are we doing this? How do I connect it to my classroom, especially of a classroom of a B school? First and foremost, let us embrace luck. There is a huge thing that people feel that being lucky is bad. No, there is something called as serendipity. Every successful person has spoken about serendipity, including Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett himself has said that at the end of the day, being there at the right time at the right place calls for serendipity, or what we call as luck, an unfavorable, favorable situation when you least expect. There is going to be this hand of God, Maradona case, the hand of God kind of scenario will be there. So if a board game is teaching you like Snakes and Ladders, which is 100% luck game, call it karma or whatever, it is there. So there's nothing that you should advocate that luck is bad. In fact, luck is, they say luck is also, you invite good luck when you think that you're lucky. Okay, let me not go beyond that. In NLP, we talk about that. When I do my NLP programs, I teach that how luck can also, one can become lucky. Board games help you plan on a proactive basis. Okay, it might be related to subject, it might not be related to subject, but we are teaching our students problem solving. I'm not talking about customized board games to teach subjects. That's a separate ball game which we are going to come to later on. But I'm saying we have a platform here where even if they play a normal board game which they like, you are actually inculcating the habit of thinking one step or what the competition is doing even before they are doing it. So even a game like tic-tac-toe or Adupulli or any such game, you actually start thinking about what the other person is doing. So that makes them be proactive and read competitions mind. Where you are a challenger, you need to understand what the market leader is doing so that you can plan one step ahead. Okay. Second, it teaches them to play to their strengths. When should I attack? When should I defend? And it is not only thinking about that I might be a guy who is very strong in attacking, playing the attacking game. Like given a classic example, Vishwanath Anand is very strong when it comes to white, but that doesn't mean that when he's playing black he attacks. When he play back black, he gets into a defensive mode, because chess is the design, the situation of the game is that white has an advantage. Okay, it is absolutely fine for white to one set of players to have an advantage while designing a game. It's absolutely acceptable. How do you break it? Make it best of three. That's how we break it. Just like in chess, chess has a strong advantage with the guy who's starting the game, who's taken the white pieces. That is part and parcel of the board game scenario. So don't, while creating a board game, you don't have to think that I have to create a game that is unbiased. Not necessary. Okay. Even tic-tac-toe, the guy who starts the game has an advantage. If he knows how to play the game, he will never lose the game. Okay. Then the third thing is when to hold, when to show. Hold and show. That's a game called hold and show, by the way. It's like a poker kind of a gambling game. But when to hold, when to show itself is a strategy which is part and parcel that students learn. And that happens. You should know when to disclose your cards in the open world. If you're into business, you should know. I'll give an example. You should know when to go out in the market. Otherwise, your idea can be stolen. Okay. When do you hold on? When do you go and a relative concept could be, when do you go to a market and ask for funding? Do you want to be self-funded before you have reached a limit, or go for funding earlier? That could be something with hold and show kind of a scenario. Games can actually teach you that as well. Third thing is there are some games. In fact, there's a beautiful board game called as Pandemic. Okay. This game was done much. It is in the 90s. It was made 1990s or 1995 or something. This game came into existence. This game is a game where it's a cooperative game. That's one more mechanics which I didn't speak of. It's called cooperative. Basically, games which teach win-win. There's no losers and no winners. There's a particular game on negotiation, fishing. Okay, which we have taken that game and taken it to the next level. We have created that game on negotiation, where one of the aspects is a co-op game. Basically, what you need to do is you have to understand that if everybody is going to fight with each other, everybody will lose. The only way that everybody will win that game is when everybody thinks together. Okay, and everybody thinks win-win. So that's the game which falls under the genre of win-win. So this is, and the last is definitely helps in increasing their logical and analytical skill sets. That is something which any board game or any game for that matter does. And if you give me a choice between PUBG and this thing, it's only a case of getting the students to play this and getting addicted to them. It's as simple as that. Okay. Even the reason why PUBG is addictive is not because of the bang bang. It's because of the flexibility and the strategy that they can use. Okay, so most of these games have got these strategies, and it's not only artificial, the scenic view that excites people. Yes, that definitely plays a very important role. But if you can get students to taste blood by playing board games, I'm sure that they will stick to board games, and it will also improve a lot of your interactions in classrooms. So this is something I just want to share 2 minutes on these slides. Currently, this company has got around 10 games. We have also made a game on Recruitment Guru. Finance Guru is a game on strategical finance management or costing, fixed cost, variable cost, capital budgeting. All this thing can be taught through that game. Segmentation is a game which is on hardcore marketing, where they understand that 90% market share in a 10% market segment is far better than 10% market share in a 90% market segment. Mathematically, both are same, but they understand why positioning is done, why segmentation is done. Then we have an HR game on talent management, succession planning, 9-box series. Most of these games I've used for my corporate trainings as well. Stock Market Guru is the entire stock market is get replicated in a 6-member board game with a little bit of aid from Excel, where they based on randomness from cards, they have to buy stock or sell stock, and then there is a based on that information which was leaked to them, how do they take decisions. Then we have a game on Sales Guru, which I showed on funnel management. Then there is an elementary game on Accounting Guru, which is on understanding the basic golden rules of accounting. Investment Guru is investment portfolio management. Then there is an entrepreneurship game, which is on understanding the pillars of entrepreneurship. When I go to a lot of engineering colleges, somewhere students think that if I have an idea, I am the next Bill Gates. It doesn't work that way. You don't have an idea. If I have a lot of money, I can still take up a company and become successful businessman or business entrepreneur. So it is not on one pillar. Out of the 4 pillars, we say if you are strong in 3 pillars, you can still make it successful. That's a table play and hold and play kind of a scenario game mechanics that we use. It's a card game. Then we have a activity-based game on Know Your Customer, and we have one game where we make it's a one-time play game where we it's predominantly for freshers, psychological game where they understand the value of parents and value of money. So that's a psychological game. We have created more games on Recruitment Guru is in the pipeline. So one small request is if anybody wants are interested in these kind of games, we can give a free demo. If you're somewhere in Bangalore, we can actually come to your college and do a full-fledged live demo. If you are not in Bangalore, we can do get it done online as well. The demo would be free to faculties. We don't do demos to students. We'll do it to faculties, and then if the college interest, they can buy these games and set up a business laboratory. So that's something which you can always reach out to me for. So I think I spoke about this. Okay. So any questions? I would like to have questions before. Like I said, this video will be uploaded on YouTube. I'll share the links of this video. Please like and share, subscribe to your friends if you feel it was worth it. Next fortnight, before I take questions, I just need to finish up whatever I had thought of. I'm planning to do any one of these 2 sessions. So if you have any suggestions, you can let me know. I'm planning how to make classroom sessions interactive or how to initiate startup culture in college. One of these 2 I can do. I'll have 2 weeks. So any suggestions, you can actually share which would you prefer. But before that, any questions, please ask me questions, because I think the more questions I get, the more I feel like it's some justice. Any questions? Hello?
Hello, sir. Lakshmi
Yes.
here.
Yes, Lakshmi ma'am.
From ISBR.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah. Sir, in funnel analysis, what exactly you would be doing? That is,
Ma'am, basically the game. That. Okay. Ma'am, ISBR है ना, मैं college में आके आ सकता हूँ, कोई problem नहीं है, but I'll just give you.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, what happens is there are like salesmen. I think I can share with you this slide. 1 second. This part I might not. 1 second. Okay. So if you look at it, this is like a Ludo game divided into 3 zones. Can you see that? Okay. Suppose you are the red coin. You will move in the clockwise direction from the top.
Sir, we are
not. Oh, I am not showing the screen. 1 second. Sorry, I did not share the screen. My mistake. Now, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. See, basically what happens, suppose your red coin, red starts from red, just like a Ludo game, okay? Red goes clockwise direction. When red comes to the previous square of red has a choice whether he wants to continue in the same zone, the same coin can keep moving there. Otherwise, he can move that coin and come to the prospect qualification stage. Can you see that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And every coin has a choice that they can move. Everybody will have 3 coins. The 3 coins, they have a choice where they want to move. But the condition is that if you have to move from one level to the next level, then you have to complete the cycle, and only at that path where just before you're this thing, you can come to the next level. That is the first step. So basically what happens is that's the lead generation phase. In the lead generation phase, in the right hand side of the screen outside the board, there are some coins called as leads. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so every lead generation will give them some coins. Let's say a good telephone call, take 12 coins. Okay. Good calls, but nobody was interested. You did not get any leads. Okay. So you don't get any coins. So you start collecting these leads in every round. Sorry, in those lead generation phase. When you come to the second level, okay, and in that phase, there is no cutting. That is, if I am red coin and from behind, if blue comes and comes to the same block where I am there, okay, there will be no cutting.
Okay. Okay.
Which means leads are normally available to everybody for money. Correct now? Suppose you want to buy, ISBR is thinking of buying some air conditioners. I can bet on it. One guy gives you a quote. There are 100 companies who know that ISBR is buying leads, is interested in buying ACs. Okay. So that is predominantly lead generation. Mein cutting nahi hota, even in the real time world. I share a lead to anybody, the damage does not happen. But in the prospect qualifying phase, lead generation, that is qualified leads. Basically what I'm doing is leads, qualified leads gets converted to prospects. That is, for getting prospects, that will tell me that 5 qualifying leads will get you 2 prospects. Like just like the funnel. I put 1,000 phone calls. I send 1,000 people mail, 100 people interested. I call up 100 people. 10 people tell me there is a requirement, qualified leads, and out of them 10 people, 3 people show interest and 1 person buys. That is the funnel.
Okay.
So lead generation, prospect generation phase, negotiation phase, I don't win everything. That's a ratio. And then what happens is we have a worksheet. In that worksheet, the student evaluates how they performed in each of the phases, and they understand why the winner wins. And if you are the winner, you analyze yourself with the second placed person to understand which phase yours. Now coming to the practical learning from this game. When I did this with corporate trainings as well, let me tell you one thing. In real time, being a salesperson for a lot of years, we tend to get passionate with accounts, okay, especially in long cycle B2B sales. Okay, this game is predominantly aimed at B2B, not B2C. So what happens is, suppose ISBR, I show you the hypothetical scenario, okay, ma'am, I show you the game ka demo, okay, but there is a lot of approval processes in place, okay, and then what happens? I call you up every week, ma'am, kya hua, ma'am, order ka, is there any requirement, any issues? You tell me, no, Ramni, exam chalu ho gaya, bachcha log ka, ye ho raha hai, something keeps on happening. But what happens after 1 month? I come to know that you don't even tell me that the order has not come because management has disapproved it, a hypothetical case. But you know what happens? To keep relations, you tell me we still not yet come approval nahi hai. But what happens is the salesperson becomes passionate with the account, and then he starts believing I have put so much time in the system, okay, that this order will come. And by the time he realizes that this order is not going to come, it is too late. Okay, and what has happened? He has not sowed more seeds in the funnel. So this game teaches people that I have to put more in the funnel. It's a ratio that works. Okay. So in fact, the starting part of the game, if more coins rotate on the lead generation, I have enough leads. I put so much in the funnel. A fraction of that will come, because sometimes when you get to the closing phase, you don't have pins to exchange or getting customers. And unless you exchange your negotiation pins to customers, you have only, it is like this. I have everything got translated to 1 customer. Now what happens is that last 1 qualified lead that I have, I am banking that on that. Suddenly, one of your management is related to somebody in Harvard University, and he comes and says, we will give you capstone free of cost. Why will you buy games from me, ma'am? And I was pinning my hopes on that 1 negotiation pin, I lose the order. So sometimes not to get passionate with accounts, but with numbers. So these things, we understand ratios better from this game. So this game, actually, I only designed it. Okay, hardcore sales game.
Very good.
It's a funnel game, but they learn concepts of sales. Debriefing on this is far more interesting, especially if there's somebody from a sales background. They can actually do a lot of debriefing for me. Yeah. Thanks for asking the question.
Very well explained. Very well explained.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions? Feel free. It may not be related to academics. It may not be related to academics. Sir, I can't hear you. So I think you're talking something. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Sir, good evening. I'm Hariharan. I'm from the Faculty of Commerce, MS University of Baroda.
Okay.
Actually, I entered the session late because of some problem, but I just wanted to ask you that do we have any games, relating to behavioral change, because these days, we're talking about bringing about a change into the attitudes and the mind of the people, right? So, I mean, do we have anything of that kind? I mean, we are all used to the older ones, which we find that at some point of the time, they become redundant.
Sir, I have
So-
one particular game on from a psychological perspective to counsel students especially. That is a game
Okay.
that is called Survival Guru, where what happens
Okay.
is the board game is designed such that the person has to think that he's a single parent. Okay, that's the first
Okay.
condition, single parent, and they have 10,000 rupees and they have to survive 1 month.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and the game throws them situations like your child has been invited for a birthday party. Okay, send the child without a gift, no cost. Send the child with a gift, 500 rupees. Don't send your child, no cost. So they have to take decisions like this. Predominantly, the game is all about emotional atyachars. Okay. Okay.
That's true.
But I'll tell you what, there was some challenges when we created this game. When this company created this game, I'm actually mentoring them. When this company created this game was created with this purpose. But then it's a one-time play game.
Okay.
Once
Right.
the student plays the game, then I know for every situation what to do. Okay, and the situation also brings in some ethics ka situation. Like for example, you accidentally at your workplace you broke a hard disk. Okay, luckily nobody saw, there is no CCTV camera. Would you pay 500? Would you tell the management you broke it and pay 500 rupees, or you will not keep quiet? Now what happens is, if it takes the path of keeping quiet, if it if it does not, if it tells honestly, after some rounds we give him back the money and 500 rupees extra for his honesty. When we were making this game and we were debating what should be done, should we tell them, we were thinking about punishing that person. Then it was one student while creating the game who said, no sir, don't punish the student. Let us do one thing, we will tell him, we will hit him hard. So if you say you don't disclose it, after four more days, you come to know that one of your friend, okay, was blamed for stealing, for breaking the hard disk, and he is removed from the job. Thanks to you, your friend lost his job.
Okay.
So that hits them much more harder, and the seeds of that my action can actually result in something dangerous for the others also comes into play. So that is a game which we have created.
Right.
It's a one-time play game, but I'll tell you, one college is using this as a counseling tool, especially when students come for admission, right? They come and see the campus and all, right? So that time with the father, they make them play the game. So the father is, it's a sales tool, okay? So the father feels happy that culture and values incorporated with his children. And while paying the fees, the cashier is made to tell them, have you played the game? In that game for 500 rupees, you were thinking 100 times, that to dummy cash. Here, your father is paying this much fees for your studies. Hope you will do justice. No gyan, only realization. So that one game we have, but it's a one-time play game. That is called Survival Guru, which is there.
Survival. Okay.
Next session, startup culture, sir.
Okay.
Good evening.
Yeah, Vidya ma'am, thoda loudly baat karna ma'am. I'm not able to hear you. Yeah, no hearing.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, thank you, sir, for inviting me and
Anytime,
asking me to join this session. And actually, thank you also for coming to our college and giving a guest lecture on on entrepreneurship. My question to you on gamification is on entrepreneurship only, sir. So you already know that since we have a center of excellence for entrepreneurship at our college.
Okay.
So I just wanted to know what kind of games we can have in the field of entrepreneurship.
Ma'am, two things here. Most of the management games that we have created, entrepreneurship is part and parcel, especially if you're engineering college also. And if in engineering college, there are a lot of students who don't understand finance, who don't understand costing, who don't understand decision making from, it's not only entrepreneurship as such, even at the end of the day, finance plays a very important role. Dollars going out, dollars coming in, that is what is the bottom line for any company. Okay. So most of these games can be done. What I can suggest you is, you can just talk to your faculties. I can come to your college. I or somebody from the company will come to the college. We will showcase all the games, and then we can suggest you to create a laboratory or an incubation, whatever setup you have. You can purchase these games and you can actually create that simulation based interest on those students as well. Okay, but entrepreneurship game, specific game, entrepreneurship game is on making them understand different pillars of different pillars that is there on what do you call the different pillars, success factors or pillars for this thing, including inner motivation, which we call an inner strength, self-motivation, and even family support. I've seen lot of successful businesses. If you don't get support from your family, it actually demoralizes people to a large extent as well. And that is one more pillar, which is very strong pillar. Of course, is that the only pillar? No, but it is one of the pillars of the 3 of the 4 pillars. If you have, you can succeed. Networking could be one pillar. People strengths could be one pillar. So this game teaches about which pillars you focus on to build your basics, the foundation of our business.
Okay, thank you, sir.
We have a lot of games. In fact, marketing Jonathan, and one of the things is when you talk to especially technical startups, talking about design thinking, they don't understand whose problem they are solving. They talk, mere paas ye idea hai and this is the solution. But the basics of design thinking is first find out the problem statement of a customer and then empathetic, then you start finding solutions to a problem. Most of the times people have found solutions, but they do not know what problem they are solving. And this is one of the biggest technical startups, when I'm mentoring startups, this is the first thing which I talk to them. I said, you tell me what is the problem, whose problem, and what is the problem you are solving. There is no answer. They say, हमारा product से ये कर सकता है. Fantastic, कर सकता है, but किसके लिए करना है? Unless you come to that process, you don't find solutions to challenges.
Okay.
Any other questions, or can we wind up?
I think we all.
Okay. Thanks so much. I wish you all the very best. God bless you. Take care. Be safe. Stay safe.
Thanks a lot, sir. It was
Thank you
very
very much,
interesting.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thanks.
you.